The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power in the creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. Joining you from slightly different surroundings, I am out and about traveling this week. I'm in San Francisco for a ethics event for my other life where I'm not a radio host. And now you're going to get to experience the double-edged sword that is podcasting from a hotel room. Because one of the things that hotel rooms give you, pretty good acoustics. You get, nice soft walls, you get carpeted floors, blankets, pillows, a lot of things that muffle the sound give you pretty good acoustics. One of the things that hotel rooms don't give you is good lighting. So better sound, worse lighting, the hotel room podcasting experience. But we're going to enjoy every minute of it because we got ourselves a fine program here this week for you viewers and listeners. Our guest coming up in the second segment, Lana Love, a terrific recording artist and copyright advocate. Got lots of questions for her. Got lots of great news stories to talk about. It's going to be a blast. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a great time for the next hour or so, give or take. Let's go ahead and bring in our co-host this week, one of my favorite human beings on this planet. Zach Sloan is here. Hi, Zach.
And I'm podcasting from a new location as well.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am in your home. As you can tell by my backdrop, I have headed over to, not Miami. I forget where you moved to, but I am in Ryan's house.
Well, say hi to my toddler for me.
I will.
Let me tell you about our guest, Zach Sloan, Lana Love. Obviously, you know all about her, but to get everybody else on board with her, there are a lot of different directions in which you can take a Lana Love interview. You can talk to her about her experience on The Voice. She was a contestant on that show, did really, really well on John Legend's team, and I'm sure she's got lots of great stories for that and has covered that quite well in a lot of interviews. So that would be a great place to start with her. But I don't want to do that. And you can also talk about her amazing work as a recording artist generally, the amazing music she's put out. You were having a great discussion, a pre-interview with Lana, just talking about her catalog beforehand. And so that's a great place to take an interview with Lana Love. But I don't want to do that either. What I want to talk, I know. What I want to talk to Lana Love about that I think is a rich vein of interview material, and probably not a place where a lot of radio hosts really like to dig in with her, but I absolutely do, is Lana. Lana's a copyright nerd. She is a copyright nerd, card carrying. And as a fellow copyright nerd, when I see another one of my copyright nerds in the wild, particularly a recording artist who's a copyright nerd, oh my God, we need to have a conversation about that. She works with the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance and the Copyright Alliance, genuine copyright bona fides here, and constantly talks to artists about how they need to protect their intellectual property. She's got a lot of great insight of that, a lot of great information on that. And so, yes, we will talk to her about her music, and I'm sure Zach's got a lot of music questions for her, but we're going to copyright nerd out. Make no mistake about it.
Well, I think talking to artists but I mean, like, to phrase her as she's not just like an artist who knows about copyright, right? Like, she's deeply invested in it. So I think that's the angle that I'm interested in hearing about, how somebody who's kind of on both sides of the fence of that can sort of talk about it and have a little conversation about the do's and don'ts, what to watch out for, all the good stuff that the lawyers get to talk about. I'm going to ask her about music.
She's a big time copyright nerd. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Like, she's so much of a copyright nerd that if we were in some kind of high school, I would be like the jock pushing her into a locker as a copyright nerd. And that says something given how much of a copyright nerd I am, but I'm not involved with the Copyright Alliance. Like, she's got some bona fides. I'm so giddy for this. I don't know if anybody else is, because I don't know how many copyright nerds we have amongst our indie creator viewers and listeners out there, but I am positively giddy, Zach. It's going to be a blast. Here's what I'm also giddy about. Can I tell you, Zach, about just what has been occupying my mind all week is the song that I have had stuck in my head all week that I now believe I have gotten stuck in your head and in producer Lauren's head, and I make no apologies for it, okay? I have been listening non-stop to this song called For You by an artist called Antron Songs, who I discovered on TikTok. And basically is one of these like kind of comedy artists who just does like really funny songs that are also really thought provoking. And he does some, great stuff on the platform, and he's hilarious, does some cool things with the videos. Indie artist, very, very cool. But I have gotten onto a whole other level of love for this guy because of this song that he put out on April 4th called For You. And I spoke with Antron Songs on Instagram, and he says we have permission to play that song. So we're going to play it in a little bit because I want everybody else to have this song stuck in their head as well, because it is an absolute certified banger. It is a fantastic song. But to give a little backstory on what the song is about, it is a song about how TikTok and the TikTok algorithm basically is controlling our thoughts at this point. That it is, it's telling us how to think. It's telling us what we should like. It's telling us what we should hate. And we don't have to think independently anymore because TikTok is here. And I'm telling you, like, this is going to become the anthem for like people in our generation who have just gotten addicted to this platform and are very much aware of the dangers it's probably having on our discourse. But before I talk to the viewers and listeners a bit about how this song came together, Zach, because that's a cool story, wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Oh, it's a great song. I think one thing I'd like to clear up for anybody who wants to listen to Antron Songs, when we say comedy, it's not like Weird Al. I mean, there are some, like, the wordplay and stuff is there, but like this is, if you were just listening casually, you'd be like, oh, is this like a Sum 41 or a Blink song from like the early 2000s? Like this. He does a great job of putting in sort of a whimsical yet sad feel over this like great pop punk song. And some of his other stuff is great. Did you hear his song about how he can't drink carbonated beverages?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Or the song he does about ordering a burger from a automated kiosk at a fast food restaurant. Oh, it's just...
The dude's great, but the song is also just a great song. So I'm excited for everybody to get to hear this for the first time.
It is a great song. But, I don't want to keep people waiting anymore. Before I talk to everybody about how this song came together, because that's a cool story, I say we all enjoy it first. Producer Lauren, can you play For You by Antron Songs for us here on Break the Business?
This is what I ate in a day. This is hope core. This is core. This is 4-4. Can you feel the beat? This is how to make fancy canapes. This is how I look in an anime, and it's cake. This is what to read. This is how to sleep. This is when to breathe. This is what you're scared of, and this is what to drink. This is when to blink. This is what to think. It's taken care of for you. It's all taken care of. This is who that hate as of late. This is Orzo. These are war zones. This is your phone. Can you feel the hate? This is how I partnered with Shake and Bake. This is your reminder you should take a break. That's good. This is how you break. This is who to thank. This is just a break. This is what you're scared of. And this is what to tap. This is how you're sick. This is where to click. It's taken care of for you. For you. For you. This page was specifically made for you. It's all taken care of. This is bad taste. This is ad space. This is a clip from the movie Rat Race. This is loud bass. This is God's gift. This is cross stitch. This is unverified gossip. This is awesome. But this is showbiz. This is bogus. This is a right diagnosis. This is hopeless for you. This page was specifically made for you.
That was For You by Antron Songs here on Break the Business. God, I love it. What is your favorite lyric in that song, Zach Sloan? Because I think mine is, "This is Orzo, these are war zones."
I like that, but I really, the part where he says this is 4-4, it just makes me so happy.
Oh, this is Hope Core, this is Core Core, this is 4-4. Can
4-4.
you feel the beat? Oh my God.
Oh, or the heavy breathing. That's really hilarious to me too.
Oh my God. So clever. What I like about this story and how this song came together, Zach, is how pure it is. In an era of music where even like the stuff that comes out on TikTok that's supposed to look authentic is still kind of manufactured and astroturfed, and like nothing's truly genuine on TikTok anymore. This is about as genuine and organic as I've seen a song break on TikTok, because this whole story of this song is about a week in the making. Day one, he puts out a 30-second clip of just him singing like the first 30 seconds of this song. Hey, I got this idea for a song in my head. And just suddenly everybody on TikTok goes nuts. Oh my God, I love this. Can you, finish the song, Can you play the rest of it? Put it on Spotify. And then within a week, he like finishes the song, and then he makes some videos about how it came together. And then within a week on 4/4, April 4th, this is 4/4 right there from the song, he puts the song up by himself on Spotify and all the other music streaming services. Puts it up so fast, by the way, that I don't even think he put up the lyrics on like the lyrics service on DistroKid. He's just like, get it up there. People want it, get it up there. And it's taking over. People love this song. It's getting a ton of positive feedback. And this guy's life is changing. He posted on TikTok that like his Bandcamp is exploding. His DistroKid is exploding. I messaged him to try to get him to come on the show, and he's just like, please, I can't do it. My life is a whirlwind right now. Talk to me later. And then I was like, okay, can we play your song on the show? He's like, deal. Good, I'll take it. But I love how pure this is. This is what TikTok was supposed to be with the music industry. Not the mind control stuff that he sings about, but like the idea that like it can be a place where independent musicians can connect directly with fans and songs can proliferate and break organically. I want to see more of this stuff. This is awesome.
It's so fun. I will caution you, if you go to his TikTok page, there is a very, very disturbing short video of a Les Paul with a broken headstock. But beyond that, it's all gold. And he's hilarious. He seems like a really genuine dude, and he makes really great music. I would hope to see more of this from social media in the future, but you know me, Ryan, I'm always the eternal optimist, so
yes,
giving a big thumbs up at home.
More artists breaking organically on TikTok, less mind control on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's what we want here in 2025. But I just wanted to talk about that story because it's so cool. It makes me so happy. I'm really happy for this guy.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see that kind of authenticity prevail on the platform and prevail for indie creators. So congrats there to Antron Songs. Wish him nothing but the best. A couple pretty interesting laws that have been floating through recently, Zach, that I think are worth chatting about a little bit. First one I can just talk about briefly. We are seeing the reemergence of the No Fakes Act coming back into the Senate. This came out in the prior term of the Congress and didn't go anywhere, but now it is back, and there is at least some discussion that this might actually be going somewhere. And if you might remember, Zach, about a couple years ago when AI and music was starting to proliferate, there was that song that somebody put out that sounded like, I think the song was called Heart on My Sleeve, and it sounded like it was Drake and The Weeknd singing, even though it absolutely wasn't them singing. It was AI voices, but it sounded so much like them that people thought it was a Drake and The Weeknd song. And it terrified people, because from a legal standpoint, because unlike copyright law, where you're not allowed to use somebody's music without permission, as it stands now, there is no federal law in place that protects a person from having their voice used as a singer without permission. Right now, you could make a song using AI that sounds like Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift would have no federal claim against you. There are some state laws that she might be able to sue you under, but nothing at the federal level. So Congress is trying to address this with the No Fakes Act that would create an intellectual property right in a person's singing voice and prevent others from using it in their sound recordings without permission. It would allow artists, it would even create a market for those artists to license that right to other people and maybe create a new revenue stream for artists. But pretty cool to see Congress starting to look at this again. The last time we saw a major kind of intellectual property law that directly affected artists was the Music Modernization Act. I think that was 7 years ago at this point. So I think it's high time for another major intellectual property law. And the No Fakes Act definitely seems like it has a lot of traction.
I remember us talking about this a while ago and how some of these bills get introduced and go nowhere. Ryan, you're the resident law knower. How in the world is this not already a thing? Like, I don't understand why we're maybe we should protect somebody. You think? Explain to me why this isn't already in place.
I'm going to put resident law knower on all of my business cards. I once had a law professor tell me that the biggest challenge we have with intellectual property law and making laws is that we are trying to use 18th century law to solve 21st century problems. And copyright law, for all of its benefits, is oftentimes very poorly equipped to keep pace with technology and all of the things that we are doing in the arts. And AI is just the most recent example of this, where, obviously when they were writing the original copyright laws in a time where we all wore powdered wigs and stuff, nobody ever envisioned that there would be technology that would allow you to mimic a person's voice and sound exactly like that singer and release music under that singer's voice. And as long as you're not using their original music and thus violating copyright law, and as long as you're not using that artist's name to violate trademark law, there's no reason why you can't do this in the federal law. And so to answer your question, the reason why we haven't gotten around to fixing this yet is because the law is slow and it's 18th century law trying to solve 21st century problems. And even something like this is probably, I think there's a chance it might pass in this Congress if we can stop putting tariffs on the Mariana Islands. But, if not this Congress, maybe next Congress, but it's back in the conversation again. And there's momentum for this because this is something that we should probably be protecting.
I mean, it seems like such a bloody no-brainer. I mean, between this and using somebody's likeness, it's just your explanation, I think, is correct, and law is slow. But my goodness, it's frustrating, especially to the artists out there who've already been taken advantage of. But also, and I remember the last time we talked about this, I forget the name of the artist, but she was like, "You want to license my voice? I'm happy to do it. Let's set something
Grimes,
up, but I can make some money." Yeah, we're screwing people over on two fronts with this, so it baffles me.
Well, you spoke about this being a no-brainer legislation, and I think some version of creating this right is definitely a no-brainer. But specifically in the copyright world, our Congress has a long and proud history of not being able to pass no-brainer copyright legislation. It's one of our finest American traditions. For example, case in point, we are the only industrialized country in the world that does not have a public performance right for music when it's played on AM/FM radio. Every other country, at least a country that you'd feel comfortable visiting on a vacation, has a law that says when a song is played on AM/FM radio, the artists get paid, which makes sense.
What?
The United States of America does not do that. And every time the law gets proposed to fix this very obvious no-brainer problem, it gets lobbied to death. The National Association of Broadcasters gets in there and usually kills the bill. Every single Congress it is proposed. So believe me, just because something is a no-brainer does not mean it's going to pass any Congress anytime soon.
And this is not the first time we've had this conversation about these types of issues. This one just seems like you would think that even the politicians who are oftentimes bought and sold in this type of situation would have a vested interest in people not using their voices to say things they didn't say. So you think everybody could just sort of get on board here, Ryan? I give up.
Well, let's talk about a law that has been passed, Zach, that I do think is a pretty interesting one. And coming for and for somebody like you who comes from the child abuse law space, children's advocate that you are, I think you might be pretty interested in this law. Last week, or I guess it'd be 2 weeks ago now, the state of Utah passed HB 322. So we're going to Utah now. This bill aims to protect children that appear in influencer videos. So we've reported in previous episodes, Zach, about laws that have been passed in other states that have tried to make sure that when children are in influencer videos, usually like the children of famous influencers, that those kids get paid, right? Similar to many states having a Coogan law, where for child actors who appear in TV shows and movies, the law requires that the parents of those children set aside some of that child's earnings, put it in a trust, and so that when that kid turns 18, that money's going to be there for him, and the parents can't just squander all the money Macaulay Culkin style. And so what this law aims to do is create something similar, but for what is kind of the next generation of child actors, which are the child influencers. And so the bills would require parents that earn a certain amount of income in these influencer videos, if they feature children, to set up a financial trust for their children. But it also goes a step forward, and this is kind of an interesting wrinkle in the law, and a pretty important one, is that it also allows children, once they become adults, to have the right to have videos deleted if they no longer wish to be featured in those videos. I think, again, this kind of rise to that no-brainer level for me. I think, protecting kids who did not often sign up, with full consent to be in these videos, seeing as they're kids. These seem like pretty obvious protections. What do you make of legislation like this as a child advocate, Zach?
Okay, so for those of the listeners who may not know, my background in law, Ryan is the entertainment law attorney, so for all things in this realm, you should totally listen to him more on than me. But my background started off actually in child advocacy, representing abused kids. Here's my beef with this law. I love everything about it. It should not be that adults get to scrub that stuff. As soon as the kid says, I want it down, it should have to come down. And here's why I say that, Ryan.
Oh, you think that the right of deletion should happen even before they become adults?
Before that, in the state of Colorado, where I practiced law, there was right when I started practicing, there was a landmark state Supreme Court case about, who can control a child's therapist-patient privilege. When does the kid have it? When does the parent? And the gist of it is when the kid is able to make that decision, they should have the privilege, not the parent or the Department of Human Services, blah, blah, blah. To me, that same logic should apply here. As soon as the kid is ready to say and is able to understand, take that down, then it should have to come down. That's my one gripe about this. Keep in mind, I am nitpicking. All of this is great. We should be protecting the kids. We should be setting aside money, like you mentioned, Macaulay Culkin. But I think when the kid is 16, they're probably able to say, hey, I don't want that up there anymore, Mom. Take it down. Right? When a kid is 12, they probably can.
It's a scary time for this. And this is, again, something that, we talk about laws that the founding fathers could never have envisioned, right? When they were thinking of copyright, right of publicity law, the idea of, not only being able to put your children in what are effectively home movies that you can bring to a worldwide audience, but that these home movies can generate hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and be industries in themselves that need regulating, and the potential for child abuse that happens. I believe that this law in Utah was actually motivated by a family that was doing this kind of stuff in Utah. It was a Mormon family, and there was some abuse type stuff going on there, and giving rise to a law like this.
Yeah, that mother can rot in prison, and I'm not going to discuss her because she's a horrible. We're gonna have to use the bleep button on me. Yeah, it came out of a child abuse situation. I really think when kids want it down, it should have to come down. I'll give you another example, Ryan. How old do you think a kid can be in the state of Colorado where they get to waive a jury trial? 10. A 10-year-old can waive a jury trial. So if a 10-year-old can waive a jury trial, I think they have the cognizance to say, get those videos of me offline. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, if it goes that far, I mean, it sounds like you might be on board with just making the kid have to consent first.
Absolutely.
Like, some kind of written signed consent, even if they're under 18. Like, don't even give the parents the right to consent to something like that. I mean, I can tell you as a parent, it's something that like that I sort of struggled with and found myself in like weird places in terms of how to approach it. I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, I was sitting in the backyard, and I should tell you, Zach, my son Nathan, who's 2 years old, I have discovered, much to my delight, has a unusually impressive aptitude for hitting wiffle balls. He stands and all he wants to do all day, he stands on my back porch and I throw him wiffle balls and he hits absolute tanks, Zach. I'm not talking about hitting off a tee. I'm throwing overhand, and this 2-year-old is smashing these balls all around the backyard. It is a sight to see. And the other day I was, I wanted to record some of it because I gotta, keep these memories forever and ever because it's so cool. And for a split second, I was like, if I did an Instagram live of him just smashing wiffle balls, it would do absolute numbers. And then I just started thinking like, oh my God, we'd get like baseball equipment manufacturers sending us stuff. Like we get invited to baseball stadiums. He'd be like doing the first pitch at baseball games. He'd be known as like baseball kid or, things like that. And like, I already like had the dollar signs in my eyes. I already envisioned this whole future. And then like I had to stop. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I don't want any of this for my kid. He's 2. Like as an entertainment lawyer, I've seen what happens when kids get involved in this industry too early. It never, ever, ever, ever works out. But as a parent, I realized for that split second how much of the conflict of interest that I have. Because my desire to protect my kid for a split second almost got overtaken by this, capitalist impulse in me. And I had to take a breath and go, no. This video of my kid smashing baseballs will be sent to my family, and that is it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not here to like tell anybody how to parent. That's not like what I want to do. I do want to like make sure people are aware that like there are videos that get posted of children when they're 6, right? That now when those kids are in middle school, high school, they get bullied over. Right.
Yeah.
And if the kid doesn't have any recourse to get that taken down, now 99% of parents, if their kid says, hey, take that down, they do, right? Most parents are decent human beings. It's the horrible examples of like this psycho that we're talking about who they don't. And we have to make craft laws around this to make sure that these kids are protected. So again, I want to make sure I'm not telling anybody what to do with like share the stuff with your kids as you want. Just know that like at some point they may want that down, and we need to either respect it or make sure that in certain situations those kids can demand that those things are down.
I'm already excited about the new sister podcast of Break the Business. Zach Sloan tells you what to do about parenting, and it's going to do absolute numbers. I'm really excited for that one. And again, lest you think that this is like a radical law, to me, all this is doing is just treating child influencers the same as we treat child actors on a movie set or on a TV set. Those kids already have protections in the law to make sure their income isn't stolen from them, to make sure that they get like education and other benefits and things like that, and don't have their childhoods taken away from them. We're just treating this group of entertainers, influencers, the same way as that group of entertainers. And that seems pretty dang common sense to me.
Again, as you said at the top of the segment, it's another no-brainer.
There you go. It's no-brainer legislation week here on Break the Business. And we got a no-brainer terrific interview coming up. This one's going to be great. Don't go anywhere. We got Lana Love coming up here on Break the Business. We'll see you in 2.
Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show.
Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with Zach Sloan. We're just having a blast. We're talking about legislation and bills and just real schoolhouse rock stuff around here. I'm in heaven. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week. She is a New York-based singer and artist advocate. Our guest is also heavily involved with copyright advocacy, working with organizations like the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance and the Copyright Alliance. You can follow our guest on Instagram at Lana Love Music. We are happy to welcome Lana Love on To Break the Business. Hi, Lana.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Not much. We are so excited to be chatting with you. I know you probably get lots of interviews that want to talk to you all about your music, and there's a lot to talk about with your music. You are a terrific artist. You crushed it on The Voice. I don't care about any of that stuff. I mean, I do care about that stuff, but what I really care about is that you, Lana Love, are a copyright nerd. And I mean that in the most sincere, loving way possible, because I love copyright nerds. And I'm excited to get into the copyright reads with you. I love that a recording artist is a copyright advocate that is interested in this stuff, that works with organizations like the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance and the Copyright Alliance. That is so cool. I want to start by asking you about the beginning of your interest in this journey. I read in an interview with the Copyright Alliance that you said, quote, "I first became aware of copyright after it was too late." What happened?
Oh no.
Bomb drop.
What was the too late? That is ominous.
Well, you're just going.
Who
right
hurt
there,
you?
right? Okay. So I did say that, and I think a lot of artists deal with the same thing, right? You don't learn about it until you have to. So I got into some trouble in the beginning of my career, and I was involved in a project that I didn't know what I would be doing. I came in as a session singer, and then I said, hey, what if you change the lyrics to this? Or, and I ended up working on the project for 3 years, and it became a huge success, and I saw none of it.
No.
Yeah. And I really put my heart and soul into it. And I was, kicking butt in New York City. I was working 3 nanny jobs at the time in order to do this. And I really spent a lot of time and energy on this. But I think this happens a lot, unfortunately. But I learned real quick, and it'll never happen again. And it hasn't. So
Name and shame. Who was the artist who screwed you?
Oh,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
no,
Please
no.
don't. I'm totally
I don't think
joking.
you can tell.
Well, the silver lining in this is that from that really, really crappy experience, it started you on this journey where you learned more about copyright law. You've become an advocate for this. You're working with all these terrific organizations. And you don't hear too much about artists being involved with like the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance, the Copyright Alliance. Those are some pretty cool bona fides that you have here. How did you get involved with those organizations?
Yeah, my mentor from when I was 8 years old and started piano and singing lessons, she was the co-chair of USIPA. And from that, she asked me, hey, I know you're going through this legal battle. Do you maybe want to speak on this? And do you want to be involved? And it could give you some more protections. And I said, yeah, I need to learn more about it so that I don't get screwed over again. So I started digging into it and really understanding what it is that I need to know, because law is like a foreign language to most artists, you know? And so I just had to figure out my own way of what does this actually mean, you know? And then through that, I kind of developed my own process for reading contracts. And now I'm pretty good at reading contracts, and I will read every single word in the fine print. And I encourage artists, if you do not understand anything in there, ask, just ask. Or
You sound like the perfect client, Lana Love.
You know, well, I think a lot of people don't feel empowered to ask because they feel stupid. I did at the beginning of my career. I didn't understand, and I thought that I was supposed to, but I'm 20 years old. How would I know? And so I encourage people to just like ask questions when you don't know something. It's okay. You're allowed to be an artist, you know? You're not supposed to know these things. So
How much better and easier my professional life would be, Lana, if more artists had the desire, had the courage to ask questions, to admit when they don't know something or they're not sure about something. And because it's so easy to just say, let my lawyer handle this. I'm sure it's all going to work out. But the ones who usually can get to the next level are the ones who know the right questions to ask and aren't afraid to ask them, right? You don't have to have all the answers as long as you have all the questions as an artist, because that can take you a long way. Now, a big theme for this week's show, Lana, which was unintentional by us, but it's popped up. We've been using the term no-brainer a lot when it comes to the law. We've talked about some what we believe to be no-brainer legislation that's been coming out at the federal and state level. And so I'm curious, as part of your copyright journey, as you've learned more about this law and as you've done advocacy work, what are some of the no-brainer pieces of advice that you might give artists in terms of protecting their copyrights? What's some of the low-hanging fruit that they should be doing?
yeah, I mean, definitely register anything that you make, especially, you know, music, be it, you can even just register lyrics with the Copyright Office. So even if you don't have the full song done, just have it so that you are in the clear. So that's one thing. You can do that at copyright.gov. You can do the poor man's copyright, which won't cost you $25 or whatever it is. And you could just, you know, you used to mail yourself a CD demo, but don't do that anymore because we are in the 21st century still. Yeah. So,
Well,
but yeah, go to copyright.gov, I mean, just make sure you're registered on all the platforms. So you want to make sure that you're collecting your publishing. Go to the MLC, you know, go to Song Trust, make sure that all your splits are correct before you put out the song, you know, and that everybody's on the same page.
oh yeah,
That's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But it needs to be talked about because, especially for indie artists, you don't always know. You know, also sound exchange, right? Get your air rights royalties. Just make sure all those things are locked in.
Absolutely. And I found that's an increasingly large amount of the work I do with a lot of early stage artists is just going to each of those platforms that you mentioned and making sure that your house is order so that you are prepared for success when it comes, so that when that song takes off, when you start getting those licensing opportunities, you already have everything in place. You talked about copyright.gov, registering your copyrights, super, super important. You can do that directly through copyright.gov, as you brought up. If you want sort of a software solution to do it because you're a little intimidated by how incredibly old the Copyright Office website is, like it looks like it was designed on GeoCities and it's very frustrating. You can go to Cosigned, that's COSYND.com, and you can do copyright registration through there. They can handle it for you. They're really, really good. And you talked about the Mechanical Licensing Collective to get your mechanical royalties. Go through Song Trust to get your mechanicals protected, as well as your foreign performance royalties. Sound exchange, very, very important. If you get music played on internet radio, Sirius XM, that's how you collect those royalties. Again, this is all low-hanging fruit, and none of them cost money except for registering your copyright, which costs money, and you do need to pay a fee to use Song Trust. But if you're just trying to register with the Mechanical Licensing Collective to get your mechanicals, That's free, as is getting set up with Sound Exchange. So these are not expensive things, but they're really important to getting your your stuff out there. Now, we've heard a lot about this notion of the poor man's copyright, mailing your music to yourself. There are a lot of kind of 21st century versions of this, as you brought up, because the whole idea behind the poor man's copyright is if I remember my guitar teacher told me this, right? Oh, just when you record your music, put it in an envelope, mail it to yourself, and don't open the envelope because then you'll always have a postmark date that proves when you made the music. Well, we have 21st century versions of that. If you post a song to YouTube, it's got the date that you posted it right there. If you post it to SoundCloud, it's got the timestamp there. But really, and I know that like the Copyright Alliance folks are gonna pound the drum on this, there really is no substitute for copyright registration. There are so many legal protections that come with copyright registration that you don't get by just posting something to SoundCloud, that it's so important. And it's not expensive to do, and thanks to platforms like Cosigned, it's not that hard to do.
So do it.
So do it. You and your friends over at the Copyright Alliance must be talking a lot about AI these days, Lana. AI and copyright is becoming kind of a hot topic right now in the industry. You're seeing lawsuits being filed against platforms like Suno because they're using copyrighted material allegedly to train their AI platform. And you're seeing the emergence of laws like the No Fakes Act, which have been proposed in the Senate, that would provide artists with an intellectual property right in their voice so that people can't make AI versions of their voice without permission. What are some of the AI issues in copyright that are most interesting for you?
I mean, I think that creators need three things to feel safe to make art. And I think that's consent, compensation, and credit. And none of those things are happening right now. So that I whenever I speak on copyright and AI, those key points need to be they need to be addressed, and that is what's happening with the no fake law right now. And I think this is the first time where policymakers and artists are coming together and breaking bread, because we have to. You and I are on a call right now.
Yeah,
that's cool. That wasn't always happening, right? Like, this is the first time where we actually have to work together, and look what happened. Now we are merging that foreign language. We both speak different languages. You know, I speak the language of my voice, right? I am an amalgamation of every life experience that I have ever had. And when I sing, you hear it and you feel it. That's something that no one can ever take away. And I really harp on that, because even with AI, I don't want creators to get too, up in arms about it, because I certainly was at the beginning. I felt like, someone had taken my intellectual property. I think everyone felt that way, but no one can take away the life experiences that you have and that live performance aspect. The difference is that I paid for those experiences. I paid to watch that YouTube video, to go to that concert, whether it be via a blanket license, or I watched an ad I still paid for it with my time. So that needs to start happening in AI. And I think we let the cat out of the bag too soon, and now we're having to backtrack. But at least we are, and we're aware of it.
I dig that. You have been an unbelievably good sport answering my super nerdy copyright questions.
I love your nerdy copyright
questions.
Oh,
bless you, Lana. But as a reward for putting up with my nerdiness, I'd like to introduce you to my distinguished colleague, Zach Sloan, who is an even bigger fan of your music than even I am. And I know he wants to ask you a ton of music questions. So, Zach, if you please.
All right.
Well, I'm a fan too. I heard some of yours earlier on this podcast, and you're like jam band master.
That's very kind of you.
By the way, viewers and listeners, this always happens. Whenever Zach comes in with the music question, it just becomes a love fest between the guest and Zach. No, I like your music more. No, I like your music more. Oh, talk about how you created that reverb on that track. Oh, my God. Oh, we're getting into the weeds now.
Just plug in. Anyway, so what I want to talk to you about specifically is a cool thing I noticed listening to your catalog. I wouldn't say it's prominent, but not like ever present. You have this really cool balance of having underlying your music this amazing soundscape that I think on its own could actually be a movie soundtrack. Yet you somehow layer interesting melodies and lyrics over the top in a way that they both fit together. Whereas I hear a lot of times, I think sometimes those things don't mesh well, and it feels like the song should have been one or the other. How do you mesh the two in a way that actually makes sense?
That is such a great question, and I think I'm still trying to figure it out. But whenever you're writing a song, it kind of just happens. And I'm obsessed with movies and movie music and big orchestral sounds. I come from musical theater world and opera world, so that was my first love. And like I am obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, and so you probably hear a lot of that in my work. And I actually put choirs in the back of the song that we spoke about before getting on this podcast, American Love. I put a big choir, Gothic choir in the back of that. And so I like to meld genres and push the boundary on that while still keeping it simple. And I think that is the key. I think the concept has to be simple, and I'm always looking for the shortest way to say the biggest thing.
Is that how you tell stories within your music? Is that the process?
It is, for the most part. A lot of times I'll find a concept that I like that I don't think has been said before. I always try to say something new. I'm not interested in something that someone else has already said well, but if I can do it better, I will.
How do you
If I'm meant to say that.
How do you know when you're, God, this is in the weeds, but how do you know when you're like, I have this idea, there's a variation out there somewhere. How do you know that this idea is the one versus, okay, that exists somewhere out there differently, I should just move on?
If I've never heard it before, then I'm a nerd. So I've heard a lot of things. So if I haven't heard it before and no one said it and it's what I need to hear right now, then I'll write it. If not, I won't waste my time. I actually don't write songs that I don't intend to put out. I never write a song that I do not intend to follow through on.
Where do you make that call? Like, I'm sure I'm guessing, because after listening to your, like, I'm sure you write a lot. If you're intending to release everything, how do you know which one you actually do? Or are you like this rare gem who actually releases everything?
I will put it down and save a lyric for later and put it in another song, but it never goes to waste.
Sweet. See, Ryan, that wasn't so bad, was it?
It was delightful. And, I know you've spoken in the past, Lana, about the importance of being authentic in your art and, being true to yourself, even when the industry is trying to take you in different directions. And, as I say that, I'm reminded of the artist we were talking about in the first segment, Antron Songs, and how he has this nice little hit going on TikTok that seems to be completely authentic. This is a completely indie artist that just made a cute little video on TikTok for 30 seconds. Everybody said, make that a full song. And then he made it a full song. And everybody said, put it on Spotify. And he put it on Spotify. And it's just a completely authentic, kind of direct, true story. And I love that. And I love that that can still happen, particularly in industry where I think the pressure is more and more to do what the industry wants you to do. And even for indie artists who are supposed to be free of all of those pressures, they still face those pressures. I imagine you face those pressures. It might not come from a record executive, but it could come from somebody who's licensing that music, or a producer you're working with, or just any range of business people that might try to change, or even fans that might try to change what you do. How do you stay authentic even when there are people that might try to change the way you do things?
I'd like to answer this with a Rick Rubin quote. The world is not
always welcome. Rick Rubin quotes,
right?
always okay here.
Glad to hear that. The world is not waiting on more of the same. Period. I don't think anything that I do that I have tried to fit into a box has ever worked. Ever. And even some producers I work with now, a lot of them say that I'm too complicated or my soundscapes are too much, or, I don't stick within a 4-chord progression. And you know what? I just don't. And that's okay if you don't like it, because somebody does. And I think the cool part about today is that there's so many niche markets and people really want real things. I really think they do. And even in the face of AI and what's happening with, I'm just going to call it like trashy music, in that it's made from, Suno or whatever, and it's not real. People feel that. It's vibrational. Music is vibrational. Our bodies respond. We're made up of 80% water. So I just think that people feel it on a vibrational level. I think that's why we either resonate with things or we don't.
Producer Lauren, I have a completely unfair request for you. This is so unfair given the amount of time we have left on the show. But since Lana brought up a Rick Rubin quote,
Ooh.
Can you find for me, it's like a clip from an interview that Rick Rubin did on 60 Minutes a few years ago, where basically it's him talking about his recording process. And he's just like, I have no technical ability. I don't know anything about music. And they're like, well, why do people hire you? And his answer to that is incredible. And like, I've given you very little to go on. I don't want the whole interview. I just want the section where he says, I don't have any technical ability and I don't know anything about music, because it's absolutely hilarious. I think Zach just put it in the chat. Can you?
Yep.
Can you like pull that in, like verify it? And if it looks right, just can you run this so that we can all enjoy this spectacular Rick Rubin quote?
So good.
And while we wait for that one, Lana, I'm curious about you talked about your musical theater background, and you do have a lot of classical training. How does the classical training work with the kind of the pop music you're making now? How do you combine those two things together, or do you try not to combine those two things?
I use it all the time, actually. I think, again, nothing is ever wasted with me. I feel like I spent a lot of years learning so much technique that I just sounded like a technical singer, but there was no soul. And then I went through a lot of hard things in life, and the more raspy my voice got, the more things I went through. And then I took it all off, and I spent a couple years just figuring out what my sound was. Not the girl who had to play Millie in Thoroughly Modern Millie, or, sing through my nose or put it in an opera place. But I learned all the resonators, and I could decide where I wanted to put the sound and how I wanted the tone to come out. And then I had a choice in the end, because I knew who I was and what I sounded like authentically. So it took me a long time of really undoing the technique and saying, what is my pure essence of vibration?
Let me ask you about that, the undoing of the technique, because that, I think, is a problem with a lot of musical theater trained or classical trained singers who try to do things in pop music. I think this is something that like Leslie Odom Jr. has gone through, for example, or Idina Menzel has gone through. And like, don't take this as like me saying those people are not great singers. They are obviously spectacular singers. But when they put out pop music, it doesn't sound quite like the pop music we hear, because there's a little bit of musical theater in that voice. And it can like kind of, throw people off a little bit, because I think it's hard to make that transition from I'm singing Thoroughly Modern Millie to this is just a regular pop song. How have you been able to navigate that transition? Did you find it was hard to go from musical theater mode or classical mode to pop mode?
Totally. It's just a totally different resonating place. One's in your nose and forward, and the other one is more guttural and from the back. So you have to figure out where that is in your voice. And especially, when you're in theater, you think about theater, it's out, right? Everything is out. The mic is like being on camera. So everything's in. And that's the difference. And I think you really have to be honest with yourself. You're not playing a character. You are not even playing yourself. You just are yourself. That's a really woo-woo way to put that. But you got to figure that out. And I don't think we're trained as musical theater people to be ourselves. We're trained to be other people.
Yeah. I mean, actors often are empty vessels, right? You have to fill in whoever the character is. And pop music, you have to be you, especially if you're writing your own songs. And I think, I imagine a lot of actors find that challenging because that's the one character that you never have to play. And now pop music's making you play it. Okay. Producer Lauren, who remains undefeated, always finds the clip, always has it ready. You have the Rick Rubin clip for us. I want to introduce this again. He was on 60 Minutes being interviewed by Anderson Cooper, I believe, talking about his process as a producer, and the way that he makes music as a producer doesn't seem like it's like anybody else in music. Go ahead and play the clip.
Exactly what he does and how is difficult to describe.
Do you play instruments?
Barely.
Do you know how to work a soundboard?
No. I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music.
You must know something.
Well, I know what I like and what I don't like, and I'm decisive about what I like and what I don't like.
So what are you being paid for?
The confidence that I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel has proven helpful for artists.
That guy has made some of the biggest hits of the last 40 years using nothing but vibes. I love Rick Rubin. That is an amazing clip.
So good.
I mean, like, Lana, you've spent your whole life studying and performing in music, and Rick Rubin's just like sitting in the studio like, yeah, I'm not feeling that. Try something else. And he's made like 40 years worth of hits.
Because that's who he is. And he figured that part out. And I think we're all just trying to figure that part out, and that man has figured it out.
Oh, I love that. Zach, are you like me? Have you watched that clip like 1,000 times, Zach?
Oh yeah. There's one of the very few TikTok videos I enjoy is you doing a spoof of that.
Oh yes, we'll have to save that for another week.
Great.
God, back on my TikTok days, I used to I really went for it. I tried to be like a TikTok creator. Oh, I'm the entertainment lawyer on TikTok. That was a cool like 2.5 months. Then I had a 2-year-old, and that was the end of that. You can find out more about our guest, Lana Love, by checking her out on Instagram at Lana Love Music. Lana, this has been an absolute treat. You are the coolest, both for the stuff you're doing in the recording studio, but as well with your copyright advocacy. Don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you on again real soon. But before we let you go, we got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah, I do. I have lots. But if I were to pick some based off of our conversation earlier, I think the more you can educate yourself, the safer you will be. So I'll leave you with that.
Makes perfect sense. And I'm grateful for the work that you're doing with the Copyright Alliance, with the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance to serve in that really important education function. Grateful for all that you do. Keep doing what you're doing. Our guests, our thanks, I should say, to Lana Love and Zach Sloan. Thanks to producer Lauren, and thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. Mwah! We love you. We'll see you next week.